Oh my goodness, everybody. Another huge week in cannabis legalization news. And we're going to start with not a psalm, but it is a quote from the Bible, which was then changed by Upton Sinclair about 2,000 years thereafter. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And that gets into our main story of the week. Hemp is probably going to be banned. We're going to talk more about a new amendment that popped out from the Republicans after they published their Farm Bill draft that completely bans hemp and really portends where the United States is going, legal medical marijuana. And so that's this new thing that's never existed before, and you don't need a loophole for it. Not only that, we have how you can create public comments on Schedule 3. The rulemaking is upon us, and it will be upon us until July 22nd. I don't have the rule that you can copy and paste. Tune in next week for that. There's more news out of Illinois and Texas and other states. But what are we going to be talking about? Mostly the Farm Bill of 2024. A lot of people are sucking on lemons right now. Sorry, but let's get to the trending news of the week. Oh, Will can't hit shit. Okay. Our director is on location.
We learned the hard way, though.
Near Michigan. What's that?
I mean, we learned the hard way. That's with tech, right? Like buttons and switching. And how many times have you ended a broadcast by accident because of a new feature?
Or when I'm trying to zoom into something. But yeah, this was our first cannabis legalization news that have ever started with a Bible verse. And that is something that most people have not understood. That saying from Upton Sinclair, where it's very difficult to get a person to understand something if his paycheck depends on him not understanding it, may have originated in the Bible. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Evidently, that's from Matthew 6:21. According to this AI overview from Google, which means it could be wrong.
Especially if it was the Genesis one right now. But I mean, it's interesting though, right? Like we're talking about rescheduling and then the farm bills that are coming through, and they're multiple states.
Bringing them all together. It's bringing them all together. And so they're going to regulate the cannabis plant in a uniform method, which would defeat. We're going to talk about the lawsuit, and so like we're going to give away a couple of books. One is this one from 14 years ago, where I made the same argument that they're making right now about how Schedule 1 weed is just bananas and can't stand up to even rational basis scrutiny under due process. But with the stuff moving into Schedule 3, changing industrial hemp, and so they've created industrial hemp, and then they created hemp for cannabinoids. And then they have marijuana, and the word natural is peppered throughout. They're zeroing in on it. They're on to you.
So right now, like for the end game, which has not happened yet or will be for a while, right? Like even Schedule 3, we still have post rules that are going to have to be implemented, right? To have the path to the plant, to have the path.
Yes, and so that's the video that I'm working on now. I didn't get the script completely done, but you have to read. Like I can't just point at stuff and be like, like you have like words and stuff. You can't influence or scheduling, rescheduling, and the changing of federal laws. You can't. It's just too complex and dense. So you have to read one statute and then read another statute, and then you're operating under one statute, and you're like, okay, where does that end? And then where does the other one begin? So like, what do you have to do? And so that kind of crap. But that's what I want our public comment that we have to show to the feds. It's like, here's how you can structure this regulation so you comply with your international obligations and also the law, because Congress, the only thing Congress is going to do is come out with some dishy clapback next week. That's it.
Oh, dude, that was so spicy. That whole, but I mean,
clapbacks. Oh yeah.
That was a spicy weekend in Congress. But you know, this whole thing that the CSA, these are all things that you've talked about throughout the beginning of the show. That, like, since we've been doing this, right? Like, how do we get to legalization? How do we get to obviously deschedulization, which is ideal end game? But until we get there, there's still so much more to do. You know, people that are naysayers against this, like, oh, it's not enough. You're right, it's not enough. So let's keep going. You know, I haven't done my comments yet. I'm still trying to strategically figure out how I want to put my voice into this, right? Like, and then copy and paste it maybe for some other people if they want to. But
Sure.
when we went
The
over,
thing is, like, these influencers that are telling people to copy and paste and say we want descheduling, you're going to get the snarkiest reply to that because you have no legal basis to deschedule. Hemp was legalized through an act of Congress. It would be the same for weed. They didn't do the rescheduling process for hemp. They legalized it through an act of Congress called the Farm Bill.
yeah, well,
But like, influencers didn't go to law school.
no,
They hustle links.
no, but this is the moment, right, where you do have a say in the actual rulemaking process, right? When I went over that descheduling section, which is still like Book of Job. I mean, it's just insanely massive War and Peace. Like,
oh, that's Deuteronomy, and then
yeah,
I have the goo, and then you're like, oh my goodness.
But
why people believe this, I don't get. Yeah.
They do point out a lot of good things, though, that for you as a citizen who wants to make a comment on a law that affects other citizens, and like they pointed out that all the studies they found that cannabis is still safer than marijuana and heroin, or alcohol and heroin, right? Like they put alcohol in there.
They tried real hard to make it seem like alcohol and cannabis were equivalents in that 92-page tome that was released, and that is our second big story. Our first one, I really don't want to give it to Marijuana Moment. They did, of course, put out something. It's just that Marijuana Moment, when we try to share, is nothing but ads. Marijuana jam-packed with ads, but it's free, so you're welcome.
It is, and they're good at it, and they're on it. So,
and they're great.
What's the first one you want to cover? You said
I want to cover our lead story, which is the amendments to the Farm Bill that were passed. By the way, these did actually pass, and she offered by Mrs. Miller of Illinois. And so here's cannabis, and then exclusions. Now, hemp is not just one thing. Hemp is now 4-ish things. And so there's hemp, there's exclusions to hemp, there's industrial hemp, and then there's hemp for cannabinoid extraction. With hilarious, right? And so whether or not this is actually going to be the Farm Bill, I don't know. But this is what the Republicans want. And there's an election in November.
Yeah.
Think about that.
That's the unfortunate part. People get butthurt when we talk about politics, but politics is how we got here, right? Like
this
recent,
is a political issue, huge.
Well, it's not just political though. Like because you're a registered Democrat. Like you and I think about how you come from like a white collar world, and I come from more of a blue collar world.
I'm a second generation lawyer. Yeah,
so
that's right.
So I'm saying but you understand more of like how the wheels turn. I'm more understanding about how being the wheel is, right? Like there's just two dynamics to what we call America, right? And so the politics part, like, man, if you saw that libertarian stuff yesterday where the last guy started speaking, you're like, how do these people still support? Like, this guy's speckled. It's not. There's no leadership. There's no real structure. We've got an infrastructure.
You can't have, like, libertarians can never win because they believe in freedom too much. Correct. They would never create a hierarchical structure to organize and effectuate their common goals. Yeah. That's one of the reasons why we have a two-party system.
Exactly. That's what we have, though, right? That's the whole point. Is what I'm trying to say. Like, the two-party system is what we have. Right now the Dems are leading the game for the general population. For descheduling it is a chance. Like if now's the time you make a comment, go through the comments. But like back to the hemp bill though, these are amendments, right? They're not even gone through to the Senate now or to the House. Who has?
Oh no, now? It's much further along than you'd think. And so like Joe asked, what's going to happen to online sales? They're going to be as legal as they are right now, because I don't think that. I mean, like the argument that the DEA and many of the people in Congress are making is THCA is marijuana. Like you have gone over the line. Delta-8 is Schedule 1 tetrahydrocannabinol under the law because it's synthetic. And so they just have not been really enforcing it. Okay. And you're seeing the change in real time.
Sure.
They found you out.
Well, this is going to affect all the gas station weed, right? This is all the gas
station weed's gone. Yeah.
Right.
The online
And
weed. But the problem that I don't like is that it's right here. It's this one, the exclusions. And so I'm going to pop that over.
mhm,
Any viable seed from cannabis sativa L that exceeds a total THC concentration, including THCA in parens, just like in
mm,
case your THC is not THC defined enough,
yeah.
of 0.3% in the plant on a dry wave basis. And so they even say the seeds from a plant that has this THC concentration will not be considered hemp. I don't like that. I think it gets into an enforcement issue and also an
Yeah.
arbitrary issue. But speaking of arbitrary issues, the 0.3% Delta-9 THC regulation of hemp doesn't make any
Mhm,
sense.
right. Right.
Yeah, I
No,
mean, you could do it though, but then like, would you want to do it by the seed or the genetic? And so the genetic regulation makes a lot of sense. And then there are 5 years ago when this was about CBD and industry and not about getting you high. Not sure if any of the people in hemp remember that. It was the type of ratio of
mhm,
cannabinoids, cannabis that they would have. So Dr. Ethan Russo had like the type 1, the type 2, the
yeah.
type 3 cannabis. And so like the THC dominant, the hybrid 1-to-1 kind of ratio, and then the CBD dominant 20-to-1 ratio, pretty much on either side. So if you just say that these genetics are hemp, great. But then the FDA never made any rules for the food stuff that became the cannabinoids, the hemp cannabinoid industry.
But this is what we got as far as like, because we know that this plant's the same plant when it comes to hemp or cannabis, marijuana, weed, pot, right? Like it's all 0.3% you're defining. We don't define corn by any other subcomponent, do we? Like
Yeah, number
corn's
2, yellow corn.
is it? So
Oh
is
yeah.
there a regulatory manner for like growing and processing, right? Because I think
Okay, yeah, but then you have to understand. And so, like, if you're going to make high fructose corn syrup, like 5545, that's
mhm,
going to be FDA, and then they're going to have to give it generally recognized as safe grass
but that's post harvest though,
registration.
right?
Yes, it's all post harvest, and so like that was one of my big beefs with the definition of hemp was that it seemed like it was kind of like an ink blot going beyond the limits of its what it's supposed to do. Like you don't define corn and corn syrup the same way. You don't define oranges and orange juice the same
Mhm,
way. But they were defining hemp as also hemp extract the
right.
same way, even though
Mm,
the FDA has the ability to regulate that. And now I think they're trying to walk that back. If you read like the OLC, the Office of Legal Commissions Counsel, Office of Legal Counsel for the President, the administrative agency that's in there in the Department of Justice, they had a slip opinion from April where they really kind of explain everything, and then the rule itself kind of goes into this whole natural, like
hmm.
it came from the plant, you squeezed it out of the plant, end of processing.
I
Yep.
thought it was funny on the rescheduling, going through it when we did, when I did it live. God damn, that thing's long. But one of their when they did because they break up the subcomponents of the actual with that 92 pages, or is that the one that's 92 pages or
Yeah.
for the okay? So in that those pages, it goes down to like history of like the recognize the history of the plant and even the history of arrest. But they go down to when they talk about cannabinoid components. I love at the end of one of the sentences says, and at every other not found yet. I mean, like
Right.
if you're going to be broad in the beginning, why not just start and just be like I mean, because we know there's so many other parts of this plant that don't make it hemp or marijuana. It's the plant. You know what I mean? Like
It is, but then like this is where it gets interesting in the sense that there's this intersection between these two laws that is kind of that's the more fascinating gap as opposed to like hemp should be weed and I should sell it without a license. Where you
mhm,
have the Controlled Substances Act and where it's regulating drugs, and then you have the FDA's Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, the FDCA, and they kind of interact with one another. And so where does the authority pursuant to the rescheduling end with that respect, considering you're going to now have this rule that allows for Schedule 3, but still prohibits at the federal level. And
yeah.
so can we integrate these two things? Because then that other law grants substantial powers to the same people, the HHS and the FDA, that provided a factual basis that's given substantial deference under this rulemaking policy for to create whatever rules they need. So then can't they create rules to harmonize these two things so that our dispensary, for example, would be compliant and then therefore federally legal?
Right. And
I
that's
hope
what
so.
to fear this rescheduling and farm bill type restructuring is you're fearing change. Like here for us, being that we're not active players yet, but we're about to be. For me, it's just going to be another check mark along the way, right? People who are actively in this industry, who are part growers, process, whatever. The whole GMP compliance thing is still just a superfluous. Just you should be doing things the right way, right? If you're making edibles, if you're making brownies, the only difference is the infusion, right? You should have a clean
realize
kitchen.
that this industry is just populated with scallywags,
Right?
And there's still a lot of scallywags in it.
Mm-hmm. That's business in general, though. I think I think
people. It's maybe it's business in general, but I noticed the scallywags in weed way more than in banking.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, do you though? Because the scallywags in banking are getting away with it without, like this is the law enforcement thing. There's understanding the rules and how to screw somebody with some sort of agreement that they're not, savvy on. There's different ways that people are taking advantage. But with this rescheduling, though, I think rescheduling also gives everybody in America like it's the same pair. But until that, let's talk about it on the other side.
Talk about it on the other side. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's that time. We need to take a break. Oh. Let's do.
Well, man, we're cooking up over there at Collateral Base. We're building a whole bunch of crap on the back end. And so we're using Go High Level now. And Miggy, I'm going to need you to help me moderate this community. And so this is going to be a community for the SEA workshop. I'm going to have to rename that, but that's pretty easy. I know how to rename it. And then you can log in. And this, I think, is where we're going to put our courses, because then we can actually interact with people and then segment them. So when you have to understand, the industry is open to MSOs. The limited market industry is open to MSOs and social equity applicants who happen to win a lottery. So let's help the social equity applicants that happen to win a lottery and give them information about how we can help them.
Of course,
as there will be hundreds, if not thousands, of those, and dozens, if not less, of the MSOs.
Well, that looks like a LinkedIn for education. So I mean, as long as we don't get banned eventually for just touching a plant and educating people,
we're very careful in the administration of it. And so, like, if you want to help, and then we won't let anybody in unless they've been arrested for cannabis or someone in their family is. So it's for social equity applicants, and we're going to define that narrowly: victims and their families of arrest.
You should do like the leading question, like when stoners meet each other, there used to be like "Are you a cop, man?"
Yeah,
what I mean, you got to tell me you're a cop. That's the rules, right? Like before I sell you this bag, I don't know. Have you never heard of that shit? The layman's fucking. Oh yeah, so it's a thing.
Oh yeah, we are going to do layman stuff. We will help them do what they need to do the right way. What's that, Mickey?
And you got your applicant page, your landing page.
That is we're rolling it out, and so we're still fine tuning and shaping, and so we'll get you in, and then once we have it up, we'll start plugging that like it's what we plug, because it literally will be. That's how you get your second license, Mickey.
This part-time thing turn into a part-time job is pretty cool, man. So I'm looking forward to helping others. You're watching our journey live. Like I still have the full-time job, but that's just what the process is. None of this is fun and easy. That's why scheduling it. You got to make a comment, make it an educational one. Don't just be like legalize it, man, or about fucking time or anything. How about have a cognitive thought about the rule that should be like what do you see as the future of how to get your weed right?
Well, and then really leave it right here.
There you go.
On the Controlled Substances Act, regulations.gov. I'm going to put this in the comments. We don't have ours out. We'll make a comment on it next week, and we'll see how many or more are there. Right now, it's at 5,160. And so go leave a comment if you haven't. Remember, if you just tell them to deschedule or like loopholes are good, no, that's not how it works. Do you know what loophole school, like how many loophole courses are there in law school, Miggy?
Oh God, dude, I don't even want to. That's nauseating.
Not even one.
About.
Not one.
What?
Dude, you cannot take a loophole course in law school. There you go.
Is that like the just like an understood thing in law though? You're like, okay, your whole purpose in life is just look the way we get away with shit. Like that's your whole purpose.
It's what you can prove and what you can't prove, and like what the actual theory is, and it is to control the facts on the record. You can't travel through time, but you can be a lawyer, which is kind of close in the sense that you can make up facts, that are legally binding on people.
Well, a lot of things you've pointed out have shown the pathway to legalization, right? And this is one of the things I hope, like the younger YouTuber peoples, the active, whatever they're fucking called, these, just
influencers,
just put it out there, put it in your networks, be like, hey, this is what we should do, because this is the time, right? The window closes on the 22nd, I think, of June or July.
June. We have plenty of time. So much time. Let's bring in our guest so that we can discuss more of the news of the week and also get context as to how you should shape your comment to the DEA and what Schedule 3 weed might mean to you. Smoke, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Tom.
Thanks for requesting to come on. Now the name Smoke, and then that seems like is that a nom de plume? Is that a trade name? Is that a Christian name?
Well, I don't think it's any of the above. The funny thing is, when I first invested in the cannabis space back in 2018, I had the question a lot, like, did you change your name to get in this space? And I'm like, well, I didn't turn 50 and change my name. So it's actually on my birth certificate, guys. It's been my name my whole life. And it got a lot better after middle school. I can assure you of that.
That's awesome, dude.
So there is a story, a little bit American Indian and a bit hippie parents. So whichever part you want to believe, you can go with.
I mean, the name says itself, right? Yeah.
Yep. Hey, well, look, some people fall into the right industry. And what do you guys what's the name of the company that you're with? It just says M&A banker at Human. And so
yes, well, I'm Human First, but I'm with STS Capital, which is a boutique investment bank. We help entrepreneurs sell their companies globally.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, let's pitch them. Let's pitch them.
Yeah. So,
well, what is an average loan like, though? I mean, like this. We're chasing $1 million. Like that's just bare low cost, like stomach turning for somebody who doesn't have that, right? Like we're about to jump into some cold water for me. That's gonna. I don't have this kind of stress in my life now at 50. I could like just not even do activism or anything and just be quiet, wheel turning little cog in a wheel because I enjoy my life now. But like what we're about to do is going to be like life-changing kind of money, which that's nobody really likes to talk about the money. Like when I used to sell,
you should always talk about the money.
That's
and
important.
Talk about when you're going to stop with the money. How much money do you want? When is that enough money?
Yeah. I mean, it's why we do what you do, right? It's why you wake up in the morning, you get your 9 to 5s, you get an education, you do things because, well, you're just going to try and make your bank bigger. And so, what is like a low loan from you guys?
Well, I mean, first of all, a lot of people do just get up to try to make their bank bigger. But I think, look, the reality is the only reason you want to make money is so that you can do things. Mm-hmm. It's freedom, right? It's freedom with your time, freedom with your family. There's things you can do. So I like to think there's more to it than just the number. But what we focus on is when businesses are ready to exit, we help them, get mostly with strategic buyers. So we help them kind of find the right buyers. Oh, wow. What's interesting with the change that's pending, as you guys are, and Tom, you're way more an expert in the details of it. But I know enough to know that when I first entered this space, I sold my last. I was in the alcohol industry, guys, so I can tell you all about that in detail, and you can good or bad or whatever. But I was very active in that, so I knew that space well. But when I sold my last whiskey company back in 2017, I had a non-compete. So my wife said, "Hey, why don't we look at cannabis?" I said, "Okay, that sounds interesting."
wow.
So I started looking at it, and as I got into it, I was studying it. I'm like, wow, this is a lot like prohibition when it got repealed. And things are moving along. I didn't know that much about it, but I was learning. And then Constellation made their first big investment. They spent just under 200 million in investing in canopy growth in October of 2017.
Constellation too?
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't know the money side of things, but who's Constellation?
Constellation's
They
a
make
big.
alcohol.
They have like Corona, and
Gotcha.
Modelo. Modelo is their big brands now,
Neat.
right? So they're a wine spirits beer company, but they invested in canopy growth in Canada. They put 200 million in. I'm like, okay, this is happening. I'm going to jump in, right? So
it's now worth 20 million or less.
Yeah. Well, no, then they put, Tom, as you know, probably they then put $4 billion into canopy growth, which they've now written.
Were they trying to offset tax burdens and buy stock on the cheap? Because I would be trying to offset tax burdens and buy stock on the cheap. That's just me.
Probably. They luckily they have a little brand called Modelo, which is worth like 90%.
It would have like a line item that says federal taxes due, and I'm like, fuck that, buy more of this cannabis company. We'll bleed everybody out.
Yeah,
I didn't realize big alcohol was already in the cannabis space because everybody's experienced big tobacco type.
And maybe that's where I was going to. Like so when they did that, I thought, okay, I jumped in and raised much money and invested in some deals. But I thought other people were going to follow, and I know for a fact that other alcohol companies, other big consumer goods companies, other like tobacco, obviously, all those guys were looking at it. And they all had like little teams researching, like, how do we get in? And then kind of we've had this, difficult, situation politically. We haven't made any progress until now. And obviously the last 2.5 years have been terrible. So everybody stopped and stayed on the sidelines. Same with family offices. Like there were some family offices that invested early. And then a lot of people just said, well, this is just terrible. A lot of people lost a lot of money in that.
And can I just like, let me just back up the truck on a lot of people lost a lot of money in 2018. And I want to share this. This is the hemp ban in Illinois, talking about cannabinoids. And so like, imagine you as a family office have just invested in a new speculative, highly regulation sensitive area called cannabis. And then because idiots, Congress, now suddenly hemp is legal and now seeds show up and then Delta-8 shows up and then just weed shows up over the course of 5 years. And they can buy internet ads. They can do credit card transactions. They can get a bank account. They have no license to deal with. They can avoid all the taxes.
Yeah.
Why do you think the cannabis stocks went down 80, 90%?
Yeah, well, that was part of it, and also part of it was the expectation that with Biden coming in, that the administration was going to be friendly, and they weren't. Right? They weren't until now. Right? They in it to be determined, but
we want to win.
We'll be friendly. But when you say friendly, I mean, are you friendly like it's because it's about choice of law enforcement, right? Like none of these guys got messed with, except for interstate. Like the interstate people have been stopping, except for, or maybe that one border checkpoint where they stopped the state, but that was a actual state regulated law versus the federal. When it comes to federal, the federal hasn't really fucked with anybody. They haven't, no harvests are being raided. Not that I know of. It's all state
raids
level
have slowed. Like there hasn't been a big headline of a raid for a while. But that could come back if they ban THCA, they require licenses, and then if they could create a structure where we need like two rules, and so we need the rules under the CSA, and then we need the rules under the FDCA, and so like we're getting under the FDA right. Well, I'm sorry, the CSA right now, moving it to Schedule 3, but it's still an illegal pharmaceutical substance. All right, well, a lot of rulemaking authority to the HHS, who started this whole kerfluffle. And so, like, can't they then, once it's Schedule 3, create another rule that incorporates that and then waives these federal prohibitions so that they could be just like Ozempic, bringing you the local news. You know?
Yeah. Like, I'm not going to get into the sausage making of how all that works. Tom, you obviously know way better than I do, but I can say this, just from a general investment profile and kind of who looks at coming into the industry. We had that, Canopy, that big investment in Canopy by Constellation, that everybody was like, whoa, we're going to wait. Family offices are on the sidelines. What's happening now with the Schedule 3 alone is now getting people to kind of step up and say, wait a minute, now let's put this back on the front burner. What we know for sure is that every public company, everybody in the stock market has to find growth. And all their existing industries, alcohol, tobacco, whatever, like there's no growth in those businesses. So there's a huge incentive for these guys to come in, but there's a risk profile that has been too high for most of them. Same with family offices. Like there's a lot of capital there kind of on the sidelines, like looking for entrepreneurs to back, looking for ways to play this, but they've been all burned or afraid a little bit because of the last few years. So I think that what's going to happen now is things are opening up a bit. It's going to get a lot better.
There's something to be said about that. And so we have something we weren't expecting that kind of broke that may bolster that sentiment. So we're going to cover a news story here. All right, guys. I'm not sure if you saw that's the Memorial Day sale at USA Today.
Hell yeah.
This week, there was this story from USA Today saying more Americans smoke marijuana daily than drink alcohol. And do they have a chart? Let's hope they have a chart. They don't.
No graphs.
No charts and graphs. It's all about headlines. But from what I heard, it is 17.7 million daily marijuana users in the United States compared to 14.7 million daily alcohol users in the United States. Would these types of, there should be three of us, would these types of data be something salacious, sorry about that large, Harvard adjective, for the family office money that may want to get into the cannabis industry if they see growth?
Sure. Well, look, I think it's not that USA Today is not what anyone's going to base anything on, but but it's an indicator, right? And all of the big money that's already in the alcohol industry a lot of the families have already made quiet investments in the space early on, but there's a lot more money that's going to head this way into it. And I think so it's going to open up the spigot. What the cannabis entrepreneurs that I know, big and small, have all experienced is a lack of capital availability for their businesses. And it's been really hard work, right? No matter how big you are, whoever you are, it's been difficult. So this is going to create more lanes for new investment, which is, look, it's not going to be great for everybody. It's going to be great for people that are good operators. And the thing is that if you survive the last 2.5 years in this space with this lack of capital, you're a pretty good operator, probably. You actually know how to do things with limited capital. If you've been able to make it. So I know a lot of these guys that are they've not only survived, they've thrived quietly. A lot of the smaller middle-sized companies that are like below the radar, but they're just doing their job. They're getting stuff done. They're running their business. They're making money in spite of the regulatory quagmire and the lack of capital. And I think a lot of those are going to benefit greatly by this opening up. So I'm always cautiously optimistic, but I am optimistic in general, just because of these changes. It's been a long time coming. I've been on shows like yours and on national television saying we were going to have federal relief, 6 years ago, and I've been wrong. I've been wrong for a long time.
Elon Musk has been promising us driverless cars for fucking years, and are they here? No, they are not here.
He's pretty close. I think he's pretty close, but yeah.
But Smoke, you mentioned something. The way you talked about the investor group money stuff out there, I really don't care. I never cared about any of that stuff as far as like legalization went. Tom being an ex business banking lawyer. Like that's, he has a purpose for this kind of knowledge. And you know, I do look at the markets, like even in the Navy, a lot of people like all the candlestick things and all the, you know, buy, sell, win. I just like, you know what, dude, I bought one Google and then I needed that $100 and I sold it like 3 months later and now it could probably be worth $10,000. Like I understand the opportunities are out there, but the way you're talking, it seems like the way they were talking about when Washington State legalized it, right? When we were the first recreational state, us in Colorado, everybody was like, "Oh, now where's the money going to come from?" And then Steve D'Angelo, who we had on the show, he blames himself for bringing investor groups to the cannabis side of things. But I think it's also more, you know, there is that money out there being out there, but as Tom and I are going through this, you know, we're going to have a no shit business plan, right? With our no shit, this is a small market that we're going to meet.
There's several. It depends on which syndication you're in, Miggy. I mean, there's many SPVs, and so like we have the real estate SPV, we have the license SPV, we have the management of the license SPV. But it depends on what cash flow you're discussing, and then. Evidently, they may eventually have marketing to sponsor the largest source of cannabis legal news on YouTube. You know, but they don't.
But we're still in the beginning of all this, where we never, you know, this was a part-time fuck around thing that now we've gotten.
It's still a part-time fuck around thing. None of
it
us
is.
getting paid. Yeah.
It still is, yeah. But the potential of what we've seen and what's coming, you know,
this podcast makes negative cash.
Negative nothing.
Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah. Yes, and thanks for hanging and subbing and all that shit. But you know, the money thing, like it's, to me, you're saying there's no new money. I just think there's no new innovation sometimes, or sometimes everybody's trying to, you know, find a partner with the right partner, right? You don't want to be a MedMen, you don't want to be a High Times fucked up. I mean, there's plenty of poster children, but also sometimes it's just the situation of the state. Because in our state, where like moratoriums happened at one time, people lost their ass when they put all their money because on the license and the build out and everything, and then, oh, never mind, you can't have this no more. You know, isn't it just more like the right business partner? Would you think?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, for sure. I mean, everything comes down to that in every business, right? You got to do business with people that are good people that want to do well for each other, not just for one side, right? And then they're look, you got bad operator. You guys are cracking me up earlier, but you have bad operators in every industry there is, you know. And if people can screw people over, that happens. But there's also good people in every industry, and there's good people in this industry. So, you know, it is about getting the good people. But, you know, go back to, you know, I grew you know, so I'm one of those guys that jumped in with hemp, and I think we ended up growing 1,800 acres of hemp in 2019. Nice. And at one point, you know, the value of the CBD extraction at the beginning of 2019, when it was about it was over 4,000. It was like 6,000 a liter at that point. Would have been worth almost $400 million or $300 million in value. And by the end of the year, it was maybe worth 50, and I couldn't sell it.
Do you understand this? Everybody is tuning in. You have just seen in first-person perspective somebody riding hard the demand curve straight down. And so it's like, we have this money, there is absolutely no money. And so this also goes the opposite direction. It goes slower. So like if you're going to buy options, the puts will be more expensive than the calls. And so if you go up, and so like we did a bit where I was going over like one of the MSO's you know, quarterly reports, and then I brought up NVIDIA's quarterly report, and I'm like, this is a stock you want to buy because of these things. You have the demand curve going the opposite direction. Everybody wants the Blackwell. Everybody wants AI. They want this thing, and it's a finite amount of it. It's going to hockey stick up. And so now if we can, through the right regulation of the cannabis plant, push the marijuana industry into its own segment, so it's not nothing and a hodgepodge of interstate bullshit. And so there's like a regulatory scheme at the federal level that is interesting. Even if we have to do it medicinally for like 3 to 5 years to get the root, because with alcohol, they regulated it for decades. They regulated it. They banned it for 10 years. and then they dusted that
Didn't
out.
work
They
out.
kind of understood how to regulate it, and they would regulate it so that everybody get paid the tax, and it had to do with the concentrations of it.
Mm.
Looks like the same shit's coming.
I mean, you're seeing the like the enabling a regulatory structure, but Smoke, what I got out of what you were talking about was like I saw a legal drug deal. You invested in how much? So like it's like a commodity, right? Like it was like you saw what was the purpose of the was it a partnership or was it like I'm actually buying 1,000 pounds?
No, we grew. We partnered with farmers who planted our seeds. We bought the seeds. We had the farmers plant them, then we grew hemp.
Neat.
And then we were harvesting it and extracting it, and then we were putting it into brands. So, but where I was going with that is, along the way, when the Farm Bill first passed, we thought, okay, great, now we can put these products onto the shelves at Walmart and Kroger, and so I was putting it into like all kinds of products like ingestibles and beverages, and I came from the beverage industry, so I was jumping into that. And we had all these products we were starting to roll out. We put it into 1,000 convenience stores, and then the FDA came in and said we couldn't sell ingestibles. So like we dealt with that whole thing right in the beginning.
Yeah.
Of course, now everybody's been doing it anyway, right? Like with so like I mean,
you didn't find the right gas station contract.
Well, like I mean, I was trying to follow the rules. I mean shame on me.
What rules? It doesn't exist.
Oh my goodness.
But that's the truth. And so like he smacked right up against, and so it's the same thing with hemp and now also with marijuana. And marijuana, just I mean the term of art. I don't mean the actual cannabis plant. You have this regulatory scheme called the Controlled Substances Act, and then you have this regulatory scheme called the Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act. And so the FDA is over here and the DEA is over here. And so one passed through, and that was called CBD hemp. And now it's just out. It's descheduled. And the FDA is like, we don't know what you're talking about. And it goes nowhere. And now if we could kind of like integrate that, but then you might see comprehensive cannabinoid regulation, which gets right back to our lead story. Well, one of them, where you're seeing comprehensive cannabinoid regulation proposed at the Farm Bill level. Probably not the right place to put it. But maybe the first thing that gets passed even before banking is some type of cannabinoid regulation scheme. We'll see.
Maybe. Yeah, I think there's also, the politics of it are always going to get in the way. You've got a lot of local states. We put businesses up in Ohio and a bunch of different states. In California, now New Jersey and other places. So I've done business in a lot of these different markets, and there's a lot of investment that's gone into these local regulated markets. So those business people, are not necessarily going to want it that the rug pulled out from them. And Ohio is not necessarily going to want to compete with California directly. So you're going to have a lot of political battles. And the one thing I know, when I was chairman of the Wine and Spirits Wholesalers, the trade association back in the day, AKA the evil empire, some people say, but whatever. They're not so bad guys. They're just distributors.
They just like a good time.
Yeah. But we passed a couple laws in Congress when I was chairman, and there was a lot of years where we couldn't pass anything, but we could stop bills pretty easily. So what I know about the way the legislative process works is it's a lot easier if the industry is divided. It's a lot easier to stop things than it is to get things through.
Yeah.
So we've got a divided industry, period, and you've got the MSOs who have every reason to stop the hemp, Delta-8, that stuff from, because it's eating their lunch, right? Like it's crushing them. And so
it's the same product, different rules.
Yeah. So they've got a reasonable business argument, but they've also got a serious profit interest in why they want to stop that stuff.
Yeah.
Why we started with the Bible verse.
Yeah.
But wouldn't like rescheduling though? Isn't this a time where kind of like there's some laws that can affect everybody equally, right? Like more of a I always think like you grew your plant and you the felony was actually infusing products and like shit, you want to do the right thing, and like now you got to eat this cost of something, opposed to just like selling it on Etsy. You know, like that sucks. But it's also kind of like, what if you? So I imagine you had a COA when you harvest, right? Everything was under 0.3%. But what if it was like 1%? Like, oh shit, I got hot plants now. Now what do? You know, remediation, all that shit. Wouldn't rescheduling still just give this path to like everybody to like, because here in Washington State, they're just trying to look at laws now recently of like failed products of like, well, will we let this be put into the hemp market? You know, we already stopped the Delta-8 that was infused being put into products from hemp. They stopped that, right? Like the consumer should have, like, in all fairness, proper understanding of what they're getting, but they don't still, which is kind of like this whole rescheduling process. Most people don't understand. You know, the law is, like you said, it's easier for a company to stop something than it is for actual progress to happen. And this rescheduling could get that ball moving forward, right? Where hemp and marijuana finally meet, and investors like you don't have to play games with like, okay, this will be a hemp, you know, this will be lotion opposed to a good time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a nice idea, and I love the sentiment. And I if it was the three of us, we could obviously solve it, or even a few more people.
Right.
But I think the reality is, you know, just having lived a little while and seeing deals happen, like that's an unlikely path, unfortunately. But look, let's focus on the positives. Positive is rescheduling is very good. It's gonna, at the very least, if it just gets rid of the 280E and everybody can write off their normal expenses, that's a huge boom to everybody who's in the business. That's a huge win. Sure. But there's going to be infighting regardless. You know, I don't think there's any scenario where there's not infighting, but you know, hopefully there's some folks that can kind of get their heads together and not crush hemp, and you know, kind of keep everything.
Why can't we just license hemp? That's the thing that I would like to see. Because if it's Schedule 3 nationwide and you're operating in, I don't know, North Carolina, or let's pick on Texas because it's literally a trigger state, and like the lack of understanding of the procedure is just glaring when I like deal with people, and I'm like, okay, and so hemp re-triggers. Now it's Schedule 3. Sue the fuck out of Texas so that you can actually have one of those licenses if you have a hemp license. Figure out how you can now have, and then especially if there's a method that the feds put through that says a dispensary will be this. If you want to be a pharmacist in weed, like Miggy and I would be over in rural Illinois, cool. And so here's the list of rules. If you want to grow it, here's the list of rules. If you want to process it, here's the list of rules.
That is so logical, Tom. But you would be thrown out.
Never happen.
You'd be thrown out of our government.
I would be called. What would I be called? A bad bod butch bitch blonde bleach? Oh no,
well, no, you'd be committed because it's just crazy.
Yeah,
crazy thinking.
All right, I'd be committed. Yes.
Well, I mean, and guys, like, I'll just remind you, and the reason I say that is, look, alcohol. You know, you pointed out in 1933 they repealed prohibition. And they didn't say alcohol is legal in the country. They said every state could regulate alcohol within their borders. That's why we have 50 different state laws. They're all very different. The retail stores that you're talking about being uniform, they're all local. Like there's in Texas, you know, you can do one thing, and in Indiana, you can do a different thing. And, you know,
these are all hemp stores.
Well, Pennsylvania, the state is a monopoly liquor retailer. Right. So you got all these different things that are all over the board. That's gonna be how cannabis, I believe, will end up. But we're still litigating alcohol, guys. There's still things that are hitting the Supreme Court. In the last few years, we've still had, like, they're fighting over, like, Total Wine is out there rolling out stores in all these states, and they're going to the Supreme Court fighting about residency laws. Damn. Washington State has a residency law, right, for cannabis.
We do that. Yeah. No. Commerce Clause.
Those aren't gonna hold up over time. They're not gonna hold up. But like, we're still fighting about it in alcohol, and that was passed in 33. So it's gonna be.
You're going to college, kid. I'll have jobs. I'll be fighting for 20 years. But hey, let's play some Name That Strain. And also we had news at 9 asking Smoke, where are you out of?
I'm in Ventura, California.
All right, Ventura, California. Let's look at some weed. That is a. This is
Big one.
go to the hints. Oh, okay. Smoke, welcome. Born Roscoe Conklin, this last name, on March 24th, 1887. He was an American silent film actor and now a weed strain. Director and screenwriter, comedian, one of the most popular and highest paid stars of the earliest 20th century, known for his physical comedy and was one of the earliest slapstick comedians, influencing many others in the genre. I'm assuming this is probably out of SoCal then. If this strain, which of course is a cultivar right there, is named after this actor.
I'm going to be bad at this game.
Okay. It is not Charlie Chaplin. And then High at 9 expresses gratitude. Again, this
Will Rogers. Will Rogers.
It's not Will Rogers. It is. Some of his famous and notable works, according to ChatGPT, which could be wrong by the way, are The Butcher Boy in 1917, The Bellboy in 1918, and to give away a bigger hint, Fatty and Mabel Adrift in 1916. He didn't make the transition to talkies very well. Evidently was maybe accused of a little bit of rape. And Roscoe Conklin, there it is, Fatty Arbuckle.
Oh, yeah.
I can't wait till we can get a sponsor for that. Like, we would love to have a cultivator sponsor, the 420 somewhere, but that evidently is Fatty Arbuckle, a powerful and flavorful cannabis strain. Has to be. It's the Fatso strain and a cross of Cookie's Legend OG. Contributes to the relaxing and calming effects of Fatty Arbuckle.
People are wild with the names. I just saw one today. It said Trophy Wife. I was like, what?
Well, I remember the wife being a name of actual hemp strains back in the day, and so was Trump, interestingly enough. Like Trump and the Trophy Wife, I remember being like hemp strain names.
What? Huh, interesting. No, I just see, I saw that, he got my weed this morning, and I was like, oh, fuck.
What do you mean you got your weed this morning?
I went to the store, just walked in there, and
how much? And you walked out with a high quality eighth, and how much did that run you? 30, 40 bucks?
Yeah, for a quarter.
For a quarter, folks.
Mm-hmm.
You know how much? Like a quarter? Well, you won't be able to get out of Miggy's shop with a quarter of good goods in rural Illinois for $40. Not maybe in 2027.
We're sorry. We're going to train the employees to say we're sorry. We're sorry.
It is the best I can give you.
Smoke, you made a great point though when it came to like we're still legislating alcohol when it comes to like the rulemaking, right? Because Schedule 3 is not going to be a fix. It's just amazingly just progress actually being made because you got and I got to give it to this administration because that's how things are happening. That's how rules, the legislation type thing, right? Like to actually make real change for that will stay, and it'll be nice if ever. Are you going to make a comment? Have you?
I will make a comment. I have not yet. I made a lot of comments along the way. But yeah, look, it is good. Look, whatever the reasons. Obviously it's election year, so like that motivated people to do it. It would have been nice to have done it earlier, but it's happening. And let's face it, we are not as divided a country as they would like us to believe on TV, on the media and in Washington. More people, majorities of Republicans and Democrats want this to be legal. They want it to be a regulated product, and the politicians keep trying to divide everybody and take credit for things or not. But
they don't care about any of the issues.
Yes, they do.
The only thing they care about is their own book of like favors owed or gotten owed. And so when they say they support the vote, it has nothing to do with you. They aren't even considering what you're saying. They've made up their mind on this bill. Moving on to the next one,
Mm-hmm.
they've made a deal with whoever they have to make a deal with, and it ain't you.
Yeah, and truthfully, the biggest obstacle to getting some kind of bipartisan agreement up to now has been the pharma industry. And not a lot of people talk about this, but behind the scenes, the pharma guys have put a hard stop on this because let's face it, whether it's anxiety, sleeplessness, you name it, there's all
other weird diseases that
pain.
might have to do with your homeostasis being out of whack.
Your stomach.
Like some of your what do they call that? Like the one things that just like where the Rybelsus and stuff. Like if you have some type of inflammatory disease and they have a cure for it, and this stuff might just be able to balance you out, and they wouldn't need the cure then.
Well, and also, I mean, guys, like I'll go out on a limb here and say that most of our illnesses and most of our, whether we're healthy or not healthy, come from our mind. And the medicines that they advertise, they're actually getting you to believe that you need it, and it's causing you're self-manifesting these diseases. So
psychosomatic.
The one thing that's good about that I think is a very positive aspect of this the cannabis category is that at the very least it helps people relax, disengage from the stress of their day-to-day, and that alone, forget about anything else, like all the other medical benefits, and there's lots of them. That alone, helping the mind just take a step back, which also you can get there through deep meditation, quite frankly. And that is the most healthful thing anyone can do. It is an unbelievable thing. So anyway, there's lots of reasons, but the pharma guys are the ones that have held this thing up the most.
It's a wellness issue overall.
Well, let's just put them all in the same frame of rules then, because if we get out of IRC 280E, and then if we are no longer a federal crime because of like, well, we're in CSA compliance, but you're not in FDA compliance. Okay. And so give us the rules to play by. And don't make us like have to do these loopholes and other gobbledygook, and then make it a federal system so that California and Oklahoma aren't slipping product out the back, or Oregon, or Colorado, or like any product that has Michigan has an oversupply of Massachusetts. And so like if you could regulate the market in the sense that it's a nationwide market, those gaps, do you have any idea how cool it would be to buy our inventory from all across the 50 states? I mean, granted, you want to help the local markets, so you can't do tariffs, though. States can't tariff another state.
Alcohol's got to figure it out, right? Like, where's the last time you bought black market alcohol?
Yeah, they got it figured out. They have a federal regime for labels and what goes in the products, but then how it's sold and who sells it, and all the rules around consumption are state level. So like something like that could work, right? Like for sure. But we've got a good decade of fighting, squabbling to navigate this. And it's bad. Look, I think incremental steps. It's like anything else. If we're trying to get healthy, we're trying to get fit, we're trying to achieve a goal, we're trying to do anything. Little steps, you take little bites of the elephant. You don't eat it all at once. So anything that's progress, I think we should all say celebrate and then try to get to the next step. That's the best way to think about this industry. And anybody that tries to do the whole thing at once, it's just not going to happen.
Right. Well, that's the problem that I see up very often with idealists versus pragmatists. And so it's like, look, we've been in the gutter here doing this stuff for a while. It goes this fast. You're coming over the top saying it should be this way. I'm glad that you get to sit on your ivory tower and not understand how you achieve the goal that you're espousing. But that being the case, let's talk a little bit about some stocks and then wrap it up. Smoke, thank you for joining us. So for the hour, we have a bumper, and we also have a thing on this. And so because this one actually is. Oh yeah, well, this one is a company.
We got one more to go over. We're gonna talk to
one more. We're gonna talk about Jushi. So Jushi was featured in Benzinga this past week with $514 million tax break awaits that marijuana company with rescheduling, and they are using the opportunity to push up their stock price because why not? And Jushi Holdings Ohio and Pennsylvania. Like these are those smaller MSOs that are out there that you hear of, but they aren't like the 800-pound gorillas. So how much M&A do you think is coming if we have a legal basis for interstate commerce, Smoke?
Well, a lot. Look, I think it's going to build because, first of all, you know, anyone that's been an entrepreneur in any business, you know that after a while you get worn down, and there's a lot of people who have, you know, who have been at this for a long time, right? Like longer than when I started, but like, you know, there's guys that have been doing this for a decade, or, you know, even if you did it for 3 or 4 years, it's a grind. It's a lot of work. So there's an appetite for liquidity events among the entrepreneurs that have been in it and have, you know, they've gotten to a certain point and they're like, okay, the big money's going to come. I'm happy to have some kind of an exit and, you know, and let someone else take it to the next level. So there's going to be a lot of that. The big guys have been, you know, and the medium-sized guys have been, you know, very curtailed because of their limits of cash and because their stock prices have been so depressed. So now as their stock prices have gone up, and their access to capital, you just saw Tilroy is out raising a bunch of money in the market again. You know, they've been buying alcohol companies, right? Like they've been going the other way, but like they're raising a war chest. There's going to be a lot more of that coming. There's going to be a lot of new war chests reloaded. And with that, people are going to find, if you're a good operator, you're mid-size, you know, this is going to be an interesting time for, you know, to take some chips off the table, you know, maybe re-up with the new guys and say, I'll take it to the next level, but I take some money off the table. That's going to be very appealing to people. You got to have buyers and sellers.
Sweet.
Hey, you know,
don't have to make it via C Corp. And also like, Miggy, one day I will explain to you how I resold the business before I even like got it. How good are you at discounted cash flow analysis? And so like it'll be an exercise in finance. Join us in 3 years.
I mean, we're gonna have many interesting conversations as we get into this business. But something for you guys to know: when I was getting my weed this morning at my store, that everybody should be entitled to. There's you guys have Jones Soda where you're at in Illinois. Yes, Jones Soda. So they're based in Seattle, and now they're involved in our cannabis market. I saw them have a soda. You know, like. As you're talking about Constellation and Pabst Blue Ribbon, they have CBD drinks. And I just thought it was interesting that a soda company now just, you know, is not even carrying. It's not even a.
Well, they did a deal with a local operator there, Ray's Lemonade. I think they make it for them. And yeah, so, but like, and I think, look, beverages, by the way, I think are going to be a really big thing. If you look at Minnesota, where that's the closest market we have in the country where you've got alcohol being able to be cannabis beverage, you know, products being able to be sold in the same location where you're consuming.
Right.
You want to see a shift in volume because don't forget, people still like to go to a bar and socialize. But if you could go to a bar and socialize, and some of you could have a glass of wine, some of you could have a beer, and some of you could have a nice THC beverage of some kind, and like all of a sudden, like it just opens up the gamut of like shifting and being able to have choices. And I think that's where we're headed. So Minnesota is an interesting time. I'm sure you've talked about it before, but
I was just there. I was there a month ago. And so and I remember the podcast I did. It's not a loophole if you codify it. And so they codified it in Minnesota. And then the feds, you think the federales are going to come enforce their Schedule 3 bullshit before they have everything worked out over the next couple of years in Minnesota? No, you have a license. You're good. You might not be able to export it out of your state. Right now, you can sell it on the internet. You might not be able to do that after they change the Farm Bill definition. But that is impetus for the regulation for what they're doing, in the sense that, maybe we do need this spectrum of hemp cannabinoid regulation piece that's not there. So as opposed to like them just allowing you to run roughshod over everything, they may take it away for a bit while they figure that out. But, you know, I wanted to thank you, Smoke, for joining us. We've had a wonderful time discussing and, you know, all the things that may or may not happen. How can people find you if they want to get in touch with you on the internet?
Well, I'm the only Smoke Wallen out there. I'm really easy to find.
Nice.
You can hit me up on LinkedIn.
If you Google me, I'm the only one who comes up.
Right.
Yeah, I'm out there. But look, you guys, thank you for having me. And look, while we all get wrapped up in the ins and outs, the content of this, the context. Let's be good humans, be good to each other, have a great life, and you know what? Give out there, give to other people, and you'll get back in return. So thanks for having me.
No problem, man.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's end where we began with this, where Matthew 6:21, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. That is pretty much the rejoinder that's going over the whole industry and all industries. And then that saying from Upton Sinclair, it's hard to get somebody to understand something if their paycheck depends on them not understanding it. And if you're in hemp, consider getting a license. And Miggy, let's figure out a deal, and then
we're getting
operational.
We're getting there.
All right, tune in next week. We will have a public comment, and we'll post it for you.
Yes. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for joining.